All right, everybody, welcome back to Hot Route Takes. This is the NFL Week 7, I believe, flying through this NFL football season. Another great week of football, man. I can't get enough of these late red zone, 1 o'clock witching hour times to where there's so many games up in the air, one possession games, and it's just thrilling football coming down to the wire. Great plays being made by great players throughout this sport. So we're not going to waste a lot of time. We're going to jump right in and start with the Thursday night football game. As always, that was the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New Orleans Saints. Jacksonville had a commanding lead early on and ended up squeaking out a 31-24 victory despite Saints' late efforts to tie the game, and they had another chance to tie it yet again, but a game-tying touchdown went just off the fingertips of Foster Moreau. So, great game. Always love to see the national TV games that are by themselves putting together a great product, great viewing experience for us. So, that was fun to watch. That's all I'm going to touch on with this. It's none of the teams in our division. Unless you guys have anything, we'll move it along to the Sunday slate of games.
Nothing. I just picked Jacksonville in this game, and their defense was the main reason why, and it came through. So,
yeah, both Brian and Christian on Jacksonville. I went for the upset with the Saints at home and missed out on that one. So we'll move it right along to the Sunday slate of games. This first one is probably the upset of the day. I would have to say the Buffalo Bills going down on the road struggled all day with the New England Patriots, a 29-25 win, punctuated late by the under 10-second or so touchdown, I believe it was, from Mike Gesicki on National Tight End Day. Brian's former guy helping his team out on this afternoon. Yeah, big upset, Brian. So what's the takeaway from these two AFC East teams?
I think the takeaway is, you just never know when Buffalo's not going to show up. And this is back-to-back week, which is a little weird for them. Normally you see them bounce back after a rough outing, but this is two back-to-back rough outings against teams they should have comfortably beat. At least you would expect them to comfortably beat them. And, credit to New England. Bill Belichick really schemed up a nice thing, scheme for his offense. Mac Jones actually played probably his best game of the year, going 25 of 30 for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. Only got sacked one time, and that is with the offensive line being beat up. They still couldn't get the run game going, but really, I think the story comes down to Josh Allen and the offense not being able to execute early on because they really came back later in the game, but just took too long for the offense to get going, and it ultimately bit them. So,
yep, right there with you. Upset of the day. It's a shocking one. None of us had. So just goes to show what the landscape is, and that noise around the New England coaching staff, and maybe that was all just flames being ignited by the media, because we got some kind of breaking news. Apparently the Pats extended Bill Belichick kept quiet in closed doors or whatever. So no coaching change, as much as Brian has harped on the possibility, and
I'm happy about it.
Yeah, and the national news outlets themselves putting flames or adding gasoline to those flames. Not to be. Bill Belichick got a much-needed win for his Pats at home, so we'll see what this rest of the season looks like behind Mac Jones and that team. Moving on, we got the NFC East matchup between the Washington Commanders and the New York Giants. Tyrod Taylor once again starting for the injured Daniel Jones. Defensive slugfest all the way. I missed this one. I can't remember you guys' games picks, but I had Washington. Ultimately, they drop it 7-14. Interesting game, a defensive battle, as I said, but Giants come out on top. Christian, any notes from this game from these two teams?
Not too many. Just a real defensive game. Maybe some calls that didn't go in Washington's favor, but that's kind of been, what's been going on for the past 2 years. If you look at the media, that's what they're saying. Just Sam Howell threw for 42 attempts today. You can't really go into a game with that. Just the running game needs to get going for this team for them to be successful, as we've seen the Commanders in the past. And just like I said last week, man, Tyrod Taylor, Daniel Jones better look out, man, because he's playing for the start, man.
Y'all are on it, and he's kept his team. Well, he's kept this team. He's not making mistakes, so he is keeping his team within striking distance and within these games. And the defense is playing much, much better.
Much better.
Credit to them. They're playing great football right now, and that was the key late game stand to keep Washington out of the end zone and keep them from tying the game. So kudos to them.
Some of that is Saquon Barkley. He had another good game and was critical in a lot of moments there.
Yeah, exactly, Brian. In both the rushing, the ground game, and out the backfield catching the
Yep.
football, he's always been that type of playmaker, and we know who he is. So good to see him healthy and helping this offensive unit out. So moving on, we're going to get to the NFC South matchup. It was one of the better games of the day, at least from striking distance the whole way. Both teams staying within arm's reach of each other. The Falcons came out on top 16-13 thanks to a walk-off Younghoe Koo field goal, the second one he's kicked this year. Just a good game all around. I thought it was interesting, the noise around Bijan Robinson's usage in this game. There was a lot of stuff going on throughout Twitter, and fantasy football owners were freaking out, at least the guys that had Bijan, because he played 6 snaps in the first half. Yeah, truly no reason to not feel sorry for you today, Brian, because that was puzzling. And later it comes out that Bijan was, quote, not feeling himself, a little under the weather. But interesting that they decided to keep him active and then just not use him. So don't quite understand Arthur Smith. I don't think I ever will. But at this point, Atlanta is 4-3, and they're playing sound defense, and they're still finding a way to slowly get Drake London and Kyle Pitts involved. Kyle had the huge catch to set up that game-winning field goal. So kudos to them for taking this one. It was a great game, and now they have the NFC South lead as we sit through 7 weeks of the football season. Moving on, we got the AFC West Vegas Raiders, who were, it was, as we touched on the preview, the battle of backups, and Chicago's backup absolutely dominated this game. 30-12 final score from Chicago. So, Christian, I'll let you hit on the Raiders and Chicago for that matter and what you saw in this contest.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway just on the Raiders side is it seems like without Jimmy G, this offense is nothing. And I mean, crazy to think just what we kind of think about Jimmy G, but I mean, they had Brian Hoyer in 7 for 32 or 17 for 32, 2 interceptions, took him out, put O'Connell in, and he was only, I mean, he did better. He was 10 for 13, but it was at the end of the day, 1 touchdown interception. Just they fell back so fast in this game and just couldn't get Josh Jacobs going. That's kind of why I think all of us at the end of the day picked this team to win, because we thought, I mean, it's the Chicago Bears. What can they do? But I'll talk on them real quick. That one, I mean, Tyson Badgett played a great game. I think this is like the first D2 quarterback that's won a game in the NFL since 2010. So I think that was pretty crazy. And then just, you know, the Raiders side of the thing is just like we know their edge room is so good, but the middle of the defensive tackles, I mean, it's kind of what we've seen out of the Chargers recently. It's just there isn't anything. And I mean, they had a field day running the ball. DJ Moore had some success, but just ultimately, I just don't know what to think about the Chicago team, and just the Raiders need Jimmy G back as soon as possible.
Yep, and noise coming out around the Davante Adams trade likelihood. The Raiders pretty much shut that down, saying he's not going anywhere, no matter how bad he may want out. So a sticky situation to say there in Vegas. But somehow through 7 weeks, they sit at a 3-4 record. And like you said, Christian, with Jimmy G, who knows? Maybe this team could flirt with a playoff spot. But they're going to need Jimmy G healthy and a lot of Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs to do so. So we'll keep an eye on that moving forward. Couldn't afford to lose to Chicago, but they did. So unfortunate there for all Vegas fans. We'll move it along. We've got a AFC North Cleveland Browns team who somehow squeaked out a 39-38 victory. Probably the thrilling game of the day, I would say, for my money. Back and forth affair. Deshaun was active, played in this football game, threw a couple picks, I believe, and I believe it was on the last one he threw, went out as he re-aggravated the shoulder injury. So PJ Walker was actually in for most of this contest. I didn't get a lot of eyes on it, being that I was watching the Ravens game in the 1 o'clock window a lot. But I know Christian kept his eyes because, of course, Deshaun playing, and both you as well, Brian. And I'll let either one of y'all take this one and just tell me what you saw. Maybe, Christian, if you want to go from either the Colts or Browns side, and Brian, if you take the other, just give some quick notes on this football game because it was a really good one.
Okay, yeah. The Colts got the running game going. It was good all game, and they really leaned on that. Gardner Minshew made some plays as well, kind of off of the running game, though, because it was working, like I said, really well. And then on the Browns side, PJ Walker made some big-time throw, man. He did. He made some big-time throws, and he also made some mistakes, but, you know, it's PJ Walker. You're going to have to kind of live with that. He was their third-string quarterback coming into the year. But I just thought he made plays, man, and he kept him in this game. And the defense was good like it has been all year. I mean, they gave up some yards on the ground for sure, but they pulled through when they needed it most.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is just, my defensive player of the year who I voted for was Miles Garrett. He had 2 sacks and was really causing a lot of chaos in this game. And just Cleveland offensive line, man, I'll just go ahead and say it's still one of the best. I mean, we see Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt. Jerome Ford did go down, I think, in the third quarter. And then they brought in Strong Jr., and he was still having success. So just this offensive line is, I think, knows that this season's kind of on their shoulders now, and they're still having a very great running game.
Yeah, yeah. Game of the day for my money, especially in that 1 o'clock window. It was thrilling, back and forth affair. And credit to PJ Walker, Gardner Minshew, not two guys that you would tune in on a regular Sunday to watch light the world up, but they both had solid throws and solid playmaking throughout the day. So the entertainment value was there in that football game, to say the least.
Sure.
Moving on, my favorite little segment we're going to have on this pod today, man. It's as y'all can hear in my voice, and if you can't see the video, I'm grinning ear to ear after what my Ravens did to this very good, as I've harped on, a team I really believe in. The 5-1 Detroit Lions came in today at M&T Bank Stadium, and they got smacked around from start to finish. Wasn't close. 38-6 win for my Ravens today at home to move us to 5-2 in the year. Man, where could I even start? I mean, I'll touch on a little both sides of the ball. And for starters, I think there's a lot of noise about how good this Lions defense and this Lions offense had been. And I think both sides of the Ravens football took that a little personally because the offense has yet to creep into that explosive big point outburst day. And they showcased their potential today, whereas the defense has been a solid unit all year. They've just yet to play some of the bigger, high-powered offense, and Detroit has that. And really, they were stymied from the get-go. I think it was 3 straight 3-and-outs. The Ravens' first 3 possessions, 3 straight touchdowns. Very efficient red zone play calling and really play calling throughout the day to move the ball methodically, mixed in with some of the, I'd say the most amount of big plays I've seen from a Ravens offense on one day. I'm just going to reel off. These are the Baltimore receivers and their longest catch of the day. Starting with Gus Edwards, who took an 80-yard catch and run, just a little, like really a broken play. And he got past the secondary and just took off for 80 yards, didn't even score, but longest play of the day. Next, Zay Flowers had a 46-yard catch. Mark Andrews a 22-yard catch. OBJ a 20-yard catch. Rashad Bateman a 20-yard catch. And for good measure, our fullback Pat Ricard had a 28-yard catch and run. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different guys with at least a 20-yard catch. That's how you have Lamar Jackson go 21 completions for 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, touchdown on the ground, and nearly a perfect passer rating. I mean, I'm in heaven, truly. I mean, that you do that against a good football team, and I think that just showcases the potential of what we are. But it's a week-to-week league. The Ravens have shown they can flip the switch and take a step back next week. But I'm really hoping we just build off this, and I'd love to hear some quick thoughts from you guys, because y'all both had Detroit and y'all believe in that team as well. Maybe want to hear what you saw from the Ravens and if you believe a little more in this team now.
Yeah, I watched this one. This was the game that I had on as I was playing chess with my girlfriend's dad today. So I thought the offense was extremely explosive. Lamar Jackson was very elusive. He escaped the pocket, and they did a very good job double teaming and minimizing Aiden Hutchinson in this football game, both in the ground game and in pass blocking. And Mark Andrews was a menace today as well over the middle, and they couldn't guard him. Every time I looked up, it was Mark Andrews streaking down, shrugging people off of him. And the running game was a nice complement to the pass game, which is exactly what you want to hear if you're a Baltimore fan. And then on the other side of the ball, the defense has been playing great all year, and we just needed to see the level of competition rise up. Although I will say this, David Montgomery does mean a lot to this football team, especially in the ground game, and I think that is where their strength really is. I still think Jared Goff is a more limited quarterback. I mean, I think he's doing great in the system, but he has the right pieces around him to have that system, and a lot of it is that ground game with David Montgomery. So I was very impressed with both sides of the ball for Baltimore.
I will say, not to cut you off here, Christian, Detroit became one-dimensional very quickly, and that's just as a matter of fighting the scoreboard. When you go 3-and-out, 3 straight, and then Baltimore throws out 3 touchdowns right off the bat, you're down 21-0. You kind of have to become that quick strike offense, and Baltimore's defense is too good to hone in on stuff like that to allow them to creep back in. So no indictment on the quality of Detroit's offense. I think they were, as I said, just fighting the scoreboard a bit today. So Christian, any notes from this one and what you saw?
No, I just kind of agree with what you said. Just, Detroit can't play their brand of football, and that's kind of why me and Brian picked them to win this game. But if they go 3-and-out, like you're saying, it's just not going to be a Detroit Lions day because, like Brian said, I mean, I've even said, Jared Goff is better, but at the end of the day, Jared Goff can't have 53 attempts, and you think they're going to win the game at the end of the day. So
Yep.
I will say on the Ravens side, though, I gave them a hard time, but seeing that the ball actually got moved around today, I think is making me believe a little bit more in this team. But like you said, it's a week-to-week league, so I see this for another week. I think I'm going to be very much maybe on this Ravens, I ain't gonna say bandwagon, but on the Ravens train to maybe pick them in a couple, future picks.
Yeah, I like it, man. It was entertaining football to watch all day. Truly the best Ravens game I've seen probably since the 2019 Lamar MVP season, because not many times we get a lead and we usually find a way to make it interesting, but not the case today against a really good football team. So I couldn't really expect less with the retirement of Terrell Suggs in the Ring of Honor. Knew it was going to be a hyped atmosphere down there in M&T Bank. So thankful that they put on a show for the guys. We'll move it on to the late slate of football games. The first one, I truly don't know what else to say about this Pittsburgh Steelers team except maybe I just need to quit doubting. The roster I look at every single week, I'm like, how? How are you guys winning football games? They went on the road and beat the LA Rams today by a score of 24-17 despite trailing entering the fourth quarter. Man, I truly don't know what else to say about the Steelers, guys. I don't see a lot every week, but somehow they are at a 4-2 record through 7 weeks of the football season. What's the key to the Steelers team just finding a way to win games, guys? Besides the defense, that seems like the obvious answer to me.
I think it is the defense. They were able to get a semblance of a ground game going today. I mean, it wasn't much, but it was enough to kind of keep the offense on schedule and score some points. And that's just kind of the formula for success right now for the Steelers is move the ball a little bit, play great defense, make sure you don't make a lot of critical mistakes. And that's what they did in this game. They did lose one fumble with Najee Harris, but other than that, a pretty clean game. They got George Pickens going in the air. And I was probably one of the biggest haters on George Pickens, but he's being consistent week in and week out. And against I don't want to say good defense, but a defense that has some good players on it with the Rams and Aaron Donald and having to scheme around that, they were to have some success. So some respect to Pittsburgh, but I think it's the defense that really makes the whole thing work. So,
yep.
Yeah, my big thing is I think it's Mike Tomlin at the end of the day. I mean, his record after a bye week is 12-4, so I think that's something he got to prep for this team. That's a great team. Kind of held Cooper Kupp to, let me look. I mean, 2 catches, 29 yards. And I think that's my big thing is that, I said this offense, their weapons, but Pittsburgh defense at the end of the day is just a great defense, probably one of the top units in the NFL. Just, I will say Kenny Pickett impressed me a little bit today with some of the deep shots he took to Johnson and George Pickens. So I think looking forward, maybe to see if Kenny Pickett can keep this moving forward with this offense is a big thing. And just the running game is not going to be great for Pittsburgh, I think. So it's just going to fall down to the defense and really Kenny Pickett taking over and winning games for them.
Yeah, I will say Pittsburgh is doing a great job at perfecting that back shoulder throw to George Pickens. That is a play they ran quite a bit in their victory over us a week ago. They continue to implement that, and for good reason. George Pickens, he may not get separation, but he is really good at contested catches and working that sideline. So credit to them for a 4-2 start, anchored by that strong defense. We'll move it on to the Seattle Seahawks, who also moved to 4-2 on the day, a home win against the lowly Arizona Cardinals. There wasn't a whole lot of highlights from this game that I saw, besides Kenneth Walker's day on the ground, going over 100 yards. And for me, I think the involvement of JSN, the rookie, Jackson Smith and Jigba, was huge development. I want to say that was his first touchdown grab of his career. I don't know if he got one early. It is. Great to see. I really thought I was about to get a steal because I saw him on our fantasy waiver wire and me and Christian's money league. And Christian, I believe you nabbed him up in front of me, if I remember seeing that correctly. So that was a little hard one to swallow because I really think this guy, his involvement is coming more and more as these weeks move on. And to complement the guys like Tyler Lockett and DK, who was out the game today, that's going to be a strong development for the Seattle offense, and it can take them a lot of places in this NFC West division. So that's all the notes I have on this game. We'll get to a couple more late window games before we get into our takes. The first is the Green Bay Packers and the Denver Broncos. I guess you call it upset win. It was, truly not the most eye-pleasing, entertaining game to watch. But Broncos did pick up their second win, 19-17 victory. I'll let Christian touch on this AFC West team and what he saw from the Broncos, or what he saw from the Packers for that matter, because I think we all had Green Bay, if I wasn't mistaken.
I did.
Yeah, my big takeaway is the Broncos actually looked like a complete team on offense. They had the running game going. They actually had a good many pass catchers actually get involved in Sutton and actually Jerry Jeudy. And I mean, really, I think moving forward, I think this running game is something that Denver's going to have to lean a lot on. And I think just that's what Sean Payton's kind of done in the past. So why go away from it? And then their defense played actually pretty decent today. I think Jordan Love had, maybe you can say, some rookie mistakes. So, I think this guy, to me, I look at him as a rookie still just because he hadn't had the playing time. Some of the things he was doing today just wasn't that impressive to me. Some of the throws he was choosing, but I think the Broncos, with what they have left on this defense, kind of did get Green Bay off the field. I think Green Bay was 6 for 14 on third down conversions. So I think just Russell Wilson played great. I think this is probably his best game of the year, you can arguably say, just because he didn't do any boneheaded decisions. But I think my biggest takeaway is not really on the Denver side. It's just Green Bay and just Jordan Love's growth moving forward is something maybe to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I like that, Christian. And to end it off with our recap takes here, we've got, unfortunately, the LA Chargers dropping their fourth game of the year to fall to 2-4 on the road against a tough opponent. As we said, 2 games for LA between Dallas and KC that we knew we at least hoped they would split, because we think they're a good enough team to beat one of those, Dallas or KC. But it didn't happen, unfortunately, for Christian. Patrick Mahomes, man, I'll let Christian touch on this, but I was worried about the Chargers secondary a lot through these first weeks. And I know it's Patrick Mahomes, but when he has 300 at half and Kelsey's over 179 yards on the day, like, what can you say about your secondary, Christian? I know it's got to be infuriating to watch. I've watched some bad Ravens secondary in my day, post Ed Reed and company. So what do you do to help out this defensive side of the ball and get things turned around in LA, man?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway on the defense side, just the first half, we really played a lot of zone, and Travis Kelce was just sitting in the open area. And then we came out of halftime. I will say the defense did play better, but just, for a defensive head coach that we have in Staley, you would think you would make that adjustment way before halftime is my big thing. So, I mean, just as a Chargers fan, I'm thinking what's kind of the move moving forward with defense, maybe get him not to call plays no more. I don't kind of know what to do about that side, but I will say, when we do play man-to-man, our defense does look at least better. I think our biggest other problem is third downs. We commit a lot of flags, and that kind of hurts this defense a lot till they can't get off the field. And just we couldn't get no pressure on Patrick Mahomes until the second half when we made those adjustments. And just for the Chargers side, I will say Joshua Palmer had a great day. He was, 5 catches, 133. So it's good to see that we are having another option than Keenan Allen. But just the running game, we had one big run with Joshua Kelly out of all people. I think he had off the top of my head, 40. I think it was like a 40 or 50 yarder. And just Austin Eckler got shaken up a good bit. So just moving forward from this game, just one, coaching side, what are we doing? And just Austin Eckler has to be healthy, I think, for this Chargers team to be what they want to be, with Kellen Moore calling plays.
Yeah, I completely understand that, Christian. It's got to be infuriating to watch, especially consider the talent on this roster, and then to swallow a 2-4 start. So they're going to have to turn things around quickly if they want to get back into the playoff picture and be in that conversation with these other AFC teams that have established themselves as a dominant offensive unit or defensive, whichever, like Pittsburgh defense and Miami's offense. At least they have a side of the ball they can bank on. Right now, the Chargers offense is not very much, at least points-wise, putting up what you think they can. And then the defense, just they're not there yet to take that pressure off. So we'll have to keep an eye on Christian's Chargers moving forward. Hopefully they get things turned around with a little bit easier of a schedule coming up and reel off some wins that way. So we'll move it on. That's our recap section of this pod. We've got a few takes. Me and Christian will give one of our own on our team, and then we'll all three have a NFL player or team we want to talk about before we get out of here. I'll start us off with a Ravens take here, and I really had this one in mind watching this game throughout today against the Lions and how much the NFL broadcasts have taken notice of the dynamic duo of Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. For my money, there's only one inside linebacker tandem better, and that's Fred Warner and Greenlaw out in San Fran. And if you look at it on a face value, those two are the top two teams have the best inside linebacking duo in the league, and they're two of the best ranked defenses throughout the league. Just off, I know they have great pieces ever. We have Marlon Humphrey. The Niners have Nick Bosa. There's other talent elsewhere, right? But do you think the inside linebacker position has lost a bit of shine? It's kind of like the running back of the defense in a way, right? Because not many of those guys are getting the big paydays because you don't see the high sack numbers, you don't see the high interception numbers from that position. But just a testament to what a good two solid player or two players can do for an entire defense. That's what Roquan Smith effect has really taken national notice now, as how he rubs off on the entire defense. And I see that in San Francisco with Fred Warner as the great communicator he is and having guys in the right position. Do you think that inside linebacker is a bit overlooked nowadays, guys?
Yeah, so I think what I had to say altogether with that, especially today in the Ravens game, I think a large reason why you guys had some success against Detroit is this spine of y'all's defense is very talented, and I'm talking about the two interior linebackers and Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, but also Kyle Hamilton, who's an absolute stud in his own right. And is Marcus Williams playing?
He was out, and funny, I'm glad you mentioned that, Brian. He was out today. Our third safety, Geno Stone, got his fourth interception today. Leads the NFL. Not even a starter. That's just a testament
That's
to
awesome.
our depth. But I love seeing a guy like that. He's been on the practice squad before. He's a late round draft pick who's just really earned his way. And I think even when Marcus Williams come back, you got to find a way to keep this guy on the field. He's making plays every week. Another interception today. So as you're saying, Brian, great up the middle, and completely agree. I'll let you finish it up here.
Yeah, and especially a team like Detroit who has a running game, but because they got behind early, they weren't exactly playing their brand of ball. And instead, what they kind of lean to in the passing game is stuff over the middle of the field because that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's their best receiving weapon on offense, and that's the area of the field which he has success. And so that directly correlates with inside linebackers dropping in coverage. And so across the NFL, especially teams like San Francisco, like you mentioned, against Miami, they were a team that was able to clog the passing lanes in the middle of the field because they have extremely athletic, versatile inside linebackers, which is exactly what Baltimore has. And building a defense like that, I think, is going to be a new layout that defense coordinators pursue.
I agree. Christian, what you got?
Yeah, my big thing is I'm not gonna say like what you said. It's the running back now on the defense, but I just think you have to be very elite to be noticed. I mean, we see, what Fred Warner does. I mean, last week or not last week or whenever they were playing the Cowboys, I mean, we seen him going step by step with Brandon Cooks down the field. There's just not too many guys that can do that. So I just think, like you said, the sack numbers, you have to really overperform to really get noticed in that position now. It's just not what it used to be, and you can't do the punishment that you used to be able to do. So you're not getting those highlights like you used to with the hit sticks, and just now it's just not as that position like it used to be. So I think that's what takes a lot of that shine away from that position, just because the damage and the chaos that position was causing a few years back just isn't a thing anymore.
I like it. I like it. So we'll let Christian go ahead with your Chargers take, and then we'll get to one of our NFL takes and get out of here, guys.
All right. Well, my Chargers take is, the next really about 6 weeks. I mean, you're looking at, you can say what you want, Brian, about this Jets team, the Lions, and then Ravens. So, I mean, just those teams right there, if we really drop in reality, I think 2 of those games, is this where we're going through the cycle of hiring a new coach, or is this where y'all are thinking maybe Kellen Moore is getting promoted to head coach? Kind of see what the rest of the year kind of play out. I just think as Chargers fans, and I think just around the league, if the Chargers, with how much talent this team has, keeps dropping games, I think the only option for ownership is really to get rid of the head coach very quickly.
Yeah, I think your defense is absolutely losing you football games, and the first answer to that is getting rid of Brandon Staley and bringing someone else in, and whoever that is, I don't know, but the change sooner the better.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard question because in the NFL, firing a coach midseason, that's a tough way to turn a team around. No matter who you're throwing in as the interim, it's very hard. It's very hard, especially when you consider the AFC playoff picture as it is now. Just tough teams to get through to get back in that playoff picture. But that said, if you believe you have the right guy to lead a locker room already in house, like a Kellen Moore, and the guys respect him, and you think you can get the team to play in a different manner behind him, I don't see why you hesitate because it's so hard to win in this league and make the playoffs. And when you know you have the talent, and especially you know you have the quarterback to do something in the playoffs, if you just get there, I don't see why you don't at least entertain it and give it a chance. Because at the end of the day, no matter what your defense is, once you get into that playoff picture, one good game. All you need is one good game, one special performance each week from your quarterback, and you know Justin Herbert can do that. And you can find yourself running into a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that's what the Chargers have to do to get there, but if you keep seeing these type of performances and just the lackluster fight really from this Chargers defense, especially for a guy's Christian, you've touched on plenty times, this is supposed to be his forte, and that side of the ball continues to struggle. I don't know how you can sit and watch it too much longer without making some type of move. So I think it's very interesting. Your team is going to be one in the spotlight for the weeks to come, for good reason, really. And each week to week performance and result will only brighten that spotlight more or dim it if they turn things around. So I'm hopeful for you, and maybe you want this team to move on. I would love to hear your side of it.
Oh yeah, I think I already kind of voiced that I'd be totally okay with getting a new head coach just because I was really the defenses played than even last year in the playoffs. Just he didn't have the I mean, you could say dog killer, just didn't let the offense do anything against Jacksonville and just really didn't show any bright side to me.
When has he ever really shown it, though? You know what I mean? Like, he's never really shown the defensive prowess. I mean, he's had a game here or there, like Miami last year, but
I feel like that's been the story of the
true.
Chargers. Yeah, as soon as he's got there, like they went out and they got the Khalil Mack. They drafted a Joey Bosa. Like they have talent on that side of the ball, but ever since Justin Herbert's been there, he's been losing
carrying the show.
shootouts. Yeah, he's been losing shootouts, and it's by no fault. You can't put that much pressure. Like I understand how talented Herbert is, but that's just too much pressure. Like you can't expect 30, 40 points week to week in the NFL. I don't care who you're playing. That's tough to watch, especially when you know you have the talent to hold teams, as Christian has preached on time and time again. So I understand your frustration, Christian, and why you want to change things up in that head coaching role. So we're moving on here. We got a few NFL takes to get to before we get out of here, guys. I'll start us off. As always, a lot of directions you can go and team player for a week-to-week basis. But given the disappointment that I saw in New England from this Buffalo Bills team today, I'm going to start there. And I just want to ask you guys, what's holding this team back? Because just a few years back, they make that AFC Championship game against KC that goes down to the wire. Or that was the divisional game. I believe it went down to the wire. No. Backtrack. 3-4 years ago, AFC Championship game, they got blown out. But they're like, noise around it. This team's there. This team's there. They face the Chiefs in the divisional round next year, and that's that thrilling triple overtime game, whatever they got. Overtime game that just was probably game of the year for our money, right? And even though they lost the divisional, we kept hearing this Buffalo Bills team is a Super Bowl favorite. Like they are there. They're ready. And since then, they've gotten past. The Bengals passed them the last 2 years. This year, I think the Miami Dolphins have passed them the AFC East. They don't look sound week to week. I know, Brian, I know you're cringing a bit at that statement, but let me say why I believe this. Even though Buffalo played a great game at home, they got up for a divisional game at home against Miami and shown what they can be. Miami's been way more consistent week to week against other opponents. They got behind 14-0. Your coach talked to this. They got behind 14-0 to the winless Carolina Panthers last week. Didn't blink. They still reeled off 42 points. You know that offense will cook every single week. I don't know what Buffalo will do on a week-to-week basis. Their competition, the last week with the Daniel Jones list, New York Giants at home in primetime, struggle fest. On the road against Mac Jones and a team that looked lowly, got shut out by the Saints, got shut out by the Cowboys, just looked lifeless for weeks here, missing key defensive players. And the New England Patriots get Bill Belichick his 300th win at home against this Buffalo Bills team. I don't know what to expect from Buffalo anymore. Where do you guys see them in this AFC pecking order now? Because I think they're a playoff team still, but I don't know how you can argue they're better than a Miami or even a Kansas City or anyone like that.
I guess my main takeaway is they have lost a lot of really good players recently, and that does take us. It hurts your team for sure. And then they're also changing defensive coordinators, and against a divisional opponent like a Bill Belichick coach team, they're going to know the right buttons to press in that kind of situation. So I would also like to mention that. But the other side of it is Buffalo, as a team, just needs to find that consistency. They've had a bunch of slow starts in recent memory. I think last year even they started 6-5. And so they're a very vulnerable team at times. I think they just continue to show that in their games. They just don't show up. I think this team's a lot better than the Patriots. I think this team's a lot better than the Jets. But situational football, they were able to take advantage of those games and ultimately beat the Bills. They've been a little bit sloppy here and there, and I think that's really the thing, is just finding that consistency. You know they have the players. You know how high the ceiling is. But you have lows like today, and it really isn't a good look.
Yeah, my biggest thing on this team is just kind of what Brian said a couple of weeks ago about the Chiefs, is just they play to their competition. I mean, we've seen this team, who was it, against the Jets in week 1, and take that how you want, but the Giants, now Jacksonville, and then definitely New England. So I think for me, at least, looking to the future is, one, what they do next week against Tampa Bay and a Baker Mayfield-led team. And then after that, what they're going to do against Cincinnati. So I think that'd be a matchup. If they do make it to the playoffs, that'd be something to circle. That's what we seen last year. So I think really what they do against this Cincinnati team is going to tell me what the future is going to look like for this team. And just like Brian says, just a lot of key injuries. I mean, they lost Matt Milano. That's a very key piece on this defense. And I mean, that was your everything for this defense. So I just think looking into the future, just kind of get what this defense could be, maybe make some trades if it's possible to get a better pieces on defense, just because how many injuries has happened to this team. But I just think my biggest thing is just playing to the competition that they're playing.
Their Super Bowl window's closing.
Yeah, that's my thing. That is my thing. I'm to the point, because I get it. It's the NFL. You cannot expect perfection every week. We saw this last week with the upset of the Eagles and the Niners. Like, these things are going to happen. But I've always, since that divisional tight overtime game, I felt this Bills team has been just a little too much ebbs and flows, roller coaster for me. And honestly, I'm almost to the point where I've got Miami that's past them. I think Jacksonville, Baltimore, they're flirting with passing them if they haven't already. And then you already take into account KC and stuff like that. So interesting. Interesting from a team we thought was the AFC favorite after that divisional game. Oh, the mighty have fallen type thing for me. So I'll let you guys go ahead with your NFL takes of the week, and we'll get out of here.
Go ahead,
whoever wants. Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
All right, my take is, I kind of look at the divisions, I think, weekly, and I just think at this point, I think the AFC North is the best division. So I think you have the Ravens now that are making a push. The Steelers have, I think, the best coaching, head coach at least in the NFL. Cleveland's winning with a third-string quarterback. So imagine when Deshaun does come back and get healthy. And then Cincinnati, I think Joe Burrow's finally finding his footing, and I think the calf may be healed up, and then they're just now coming off of a bye too. So I think either you can say this is the best division, or maybe if you're Chase, you can look and say this is kind of not a good thing. So these teams are going to beat the snot out of each other until the playoff push happens. And I mean, you're going to be limping into the playoffs. But I just think looking around the league, I think just all these teams, other maybe you can say the Steelers, I know that talent on that team's just not there. But you look at these other three teams, the talent's there. Each of them are having, I think Cincinnati, once they get going, will be a top offensive unit. And now you have 3 top defensive units, I think, also in this division. So I just think, to me right now, this is the best division. I think you can't really tell me otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start us off here, and I was floating that around preseason because of the depth and like a bottom whoever finishes last in this AFC North, they're not going to be drafting very high. They are not going to. I would doubt to say they have a top 10 pick the way things are looking right now, because each side of the ball, each team has one side of the ball they can bank on being really good, and as Christian has talked on, most of them are the defenses in this division. And I'm past the point, as I said it today, of saying Pittsburgh's not a good team. They just keep making me put my foot in my mouth, honestly, because they find a way to win football games. I think the firepower of Cincinnati's offense is some of the best in the NFL, and truly one really good team. There's a lot of pundits that had 3 AFC North teams making the playoffs. I think that's very well on its way to becoming a fact by a season's end. I know the AFC is loaded. It's going to be close. That third AFC North team may flirt around with a 9-10 win year and be on that last 7 seed spot, but I think it's going to happen. And a really good 4th place AFC North team at 8 or 9 wins, like a Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, any of those teams can wind up there, and they'll be on the outside looking in. And as Christian said, you can go in the playoffs limping because of the physicality of this division, or you can say it battle tests you and prepares you for the great teams, the Kansas Cities, the Miamis, who you're going to have to go through to get to that Super Bowl. So I'm excited. I love to watch these matchups week in and week out because I know they're physical and they're well-coached teams. It's just good football to watch, man. I really couldn't agree. Because I can't think of a division that's really there with them, honestly, from top to bottom.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're definitely the best. I think there's a case to be made for maybe 2 others, but I think it is the AFC North. But the AFC East is good, and so is the NFC West. But there's the only 2 that I would say maybe have a shot, because NFC West does have the Niners, Seattle, and the Rams, and those are all 3 quality teams. But the Cardinals are obviously a sore spot, but the other 3 teams are really good. And then the AFC East, New England is, mid at best. Would that you say that's fair at this point? Buffalo, which is a good team still. I think they're a good team. I've seen this in years past, and they turn it around. And Miami is a good team. And the Jets have shown life, like Christian likes to say. But it's
coming
mainly
off a bye, baby.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking on, Brian, it's just the depth, man. How many divisions can look at their 4th place team and be like, that's still a really good football team? And that's the case in the AFC North. You could argue that 4th place AFC North team may be better than the NFC South winner. Like, it's that close in terms of talent and roster throughout this division compared to the rest of football. So love that question, Christian, and that was a great outlook on the landscape of the NFL. Brian, we got one more take from you before we get out of here and let you go watch your Dolphins in a mouth-watering matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, we just got to stop in the red zone and force the field goal, but they did march the ball down the field. I'm keeping an eye on it, man. I can't not, but I do have a take here. Maybe we can make it quick and get out. So it's are the 49ers too dependent on Christian McCaffrey for their offense to be truly elite, like Super Bowl worthy?
You want to go ahead, Christian?
I mean, I think we've seen this offense maybe struggle without Christian McCaffrey, but I just think there's too many weapons if you look around. And I think we've seen them play the Cowboys. Granted, Christian McCaffrey was healthy, and let me look real quick. I mean, he only had 51 yards that game. So I think they have games that they have won without Christian McCaffrey, but there's also been games that Christian McCaffrey has taken over for them. But I just think this team's defense, I mean, we can say they're, if anything, become like a Pittsburgh Steelers team maybe if Christian McCaffrey isn't there. But I just think there's too many weapons. I mean, Brandon Ayuk took a step. George Kittle, I mean, you can say he's a hit or miss, but he's still, when he is on, I mean, you can argue a top 3 tight end. And then Deebo Samuel, I think they could get him in the mix more if there wasn't a such thing as a Christian McCaffrey. But I just think it's really his offensive line, the scheme. But I think Christian McCaffrey makes this a better football team, you can say. But I don't think they run as far as Christian McCaffrey will run this team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Christian. This team, the offensive outlook, I think it changed a lot when they made that trade for Christian, and he opens up this playbook in a way that Kyle Shanahan probably could have never hoped or ever dreamed for. That said, the other side of the football is where the money is made for me. That's where I fell in love with this team preseason and just talked so highly of them. And then you partner that with Brock Purdy showing me enough. I still don't by no means think he's a top 10 elite guy to carry football teams. But when all you have to do is take care of the football and you've got a Ayuk, a Kittle, and a Deebo to get the ball to and make plays for you, he's good enough to do that. Even without McCaffrey, hopefully, he seems to get dinged up almost every year. I think San Fran, if they were to enter a playoff run without Christian, would be the favorite in the NFC still, although a head-to-head matchup with Philly would be a toss-up in my mind without Christian McCaffrey. If you throw him into the mix, I think they're the heavy favorite. So, good question, Brian. I can't speak highly enough of the defense, and that's really where the money is made for me, as I said. But interesting question, to say the least, for our opinions on NFL running backs. We see, I talked on earlier, the inside linebacker and what that does for a defense. A great running back does a lot for an offense, and look no further than that running back right there in San Francisco. So, anything for it, Brian, before we get out of here?
Nope, ready to go. It's home right now.
Ready to go. Well, we'll let you get out of here. I know this is a great Sunday night football game to watch. We're going to luckily finish this pod in a short 47-ish, 48-minute session. So I think that was a great sweet spot to get to for future podcasts as we get this recap schedule and stuff kinks worked out as we move forward with this format. I love it. I love it, guys. I love the NFL football I got to see today, and I'm looking forward to another great NFL Week 8 with some more great matchups, and we'll finish off this one. Oh, we didn't do my fault, Brian. I ain't trying to keep you, I promise. But the standings, NFL pick standings. Brian had the best week. He is still in first place. I think I made a move because I had the Chiefs and the Ravens, and I was the only one to pick those. But just to quickly list off the standings, Brian is 64-40 in first place. I'm 61-43 in second. Christian 59-45. Obviously, we still have the 2 primetime games, which we will recap shortly on the next episode. But those are the standings for you guys as we list them right now. Great football being played, great to watch, great to talk to you guys every week and hammer out these takes and stuff like that. So we appreciate you for listening. And as always, like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend, tell an enemy, all those good things. Thank you guys. And we will see you next Wednesday for the NFL Week 8 preview show. Peace out.
Fly,
Go
Eagles,
Dolphins.
fly.
Go Dolphins. All right, boys. I'm going.
All right, see you, buddy.
As soon as this thing stops.